next week, Arsenal Man United. Now, I know that's probably a fixture that back in the day for you. Did you look forward to it, that fixture?
Oh, of course. It was always significant. You know, if you knew if you got something against Manchester United home and away, that you had a good opportunity to be Premier League champions back in that period. It's very different now with Amorim coming back in. We saw at the weekend lots of work to do. Players not quite understanding what he wanted, looked a little bit confused. Interesting feedback about Fernandes, not close enough to the ball. Wing backs not really engaging properly, putting people under pressure. So he's got a lot of work to do. He's got a message better. Let's hope he doesn't get that message across in time for this really big game. Always a big game. Arsenal welcoming Manchester United to the Emirates.
I was going to ask, what's your score prediction, do you think? I mean, obviously they started okay at Ipswich, didn't they? And then I think Ipswich actually grew into the game quite well. And as you said, you pointed out the flaws there. But what do you think now what the score could be?
Arsenal?
Next week?
Well, I'm always going to go for Arsenal win. Maybe a 2-0 win.
Okay. Goal scorers?
Oh my God! I think Martinelli might be someone who starts to pick up and put the ball in the back of the net. He didn't play at the weekend.
Yeah.
So we're looking ahead now, aren't we, to Sporting. Arsenal go to Sporting, so it's a tricky match for them. So it's about managing those players. Declan Rice rested at the weekend, so some big games before then. But I expect Arsenal, they're going to have to win that if they have any expectation of being champions. Liverpool are running away with it right now. Yeah,
and you touched on it, but back in the day, that rivalry was a lot fiercer than it is now. But where does that rivalry from the early 2000s sit, do you think, in terms of Premier League rivalry history? Do you think it's up there as being one of the fiercest?
Is there one bigger? I think if you think about back then, you go back to the Wenger years, 97, 98, Manchester United, I think, had won, was it 4 of the first 5 Premier Leagues? And suddenly this Frenchman's coming in, and to sort of knock their nose out of joint a little bit. What we did that season, we won 10 games on the bounce to become champions. Manchester United were being paid out at Christmas, so that kind of created a real change.
Yeah.
Some of the players that were brought in, and then you get the rivalries and the duels. You're playing against the same players. You've got Roy Keane and Patrick Vieira, 2 of the finest midfield players we've ever seen, up against each other. So that rivalry has kind of disappeared a little bit. Manchester United going through big change, but Arsenal, I think, are ahead of them.
Yeah.
With Arteta now just done 5 years. So, but always a big game, that one.
Yeah. So when you were playing in those games, I always wonder, that was there a particular player that stood out? I know, obviously, I'm not going to say Ruud van Nistelrooy because that could be the obvious one, but was there anyone else that you faced that thought that they took it really seriously? They wouldn't even talk to you, sort of?
Gosh, no. I had spent time with the guys at the England get-togethers. They were all really fiercely competitive. Paul Scholes would kick the Man United players as much as he'd kick the Arsenal players in training. He didn't, seem to choose anyone in particular. You couldn't really focus on one player because they were all so good, weren't they? So, if you were going to just home in on gigs, then Paul Scholes would probably make a run from deep. Van Nistelrooy would be the same. They always had 4 strikers, which was always tricky when you looked over to the sidelines. Is it going to be Dwight York or Cole or Sheringham, Solskjaer? Most teams just had 2, and they had 4. So, that would be your downfall if you were really homing in on one player.
Was there anyone that actually, despite the rivalry between you guys, that was actually right with you? That would be quite friendly and nice?
I think someone like David Beckham was someone who always seemed such a well-balanced, aggressive on the pitch. Really, I don't think he gets quite enough credit for the quality he produced. And then off the pitch, a really good lad. Didn't seem to have any real edge to him, or didn't hold anything against me anyway for kicking him on the pitch.
Did you ever chat to him at all, like in the tunnel or anything like that when you're about to go out?
I wasn't a great one for that.
No.
I always used to just be, look as if I was totally uninterested, trying to save energy, trying to make it look like I was being cool. I didn't want to be aggressive. I didn't want to use up any nervous energy. And but I always enjoyed taking to the pitch, certainly with the array of players that Wenger put together in those years.
Particularly, I suppose, with the Sky cameras there and stuff, you're not going to want to be chatting away.
To be honest, I never really cared who was looking. I wish now when I look back, I might have smiled occasionally. Might have had some decent pictures to look back on.
Yeah, it looks aggressive on the pitch. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Who did you hate facing the most? I mean, you've named a few there of the talents at Man United, but Was there anyone that you dreaded?
I think hate
facing?
is a problem.
Yeah.
If you take hatred into the game, then you're going to get too emotional. You you have to keep a lid on it. There was one or two that I didn't have to work hard to get up for. I think Sheringham was somebody that I'd come across from a really young age.
Yeah.
So we'd played against each other from 17, 18 when he was at Millwall as a kid.
Okay.
And probably because he got on better with Tony and seemed to just exclude me. So that's fine. So it gave me that motivation when I respected him, of course.
Yeah.
There's always going to be players that you get on with and that you don't get along with.
Yeah.
It's just having that respect for them, isn't it?
So going back to Arsenal in the current day, there was a bit of discourse, me and Sonny were talking about this before, that some Arsenal fans, I say some, were talking about Declan Rice, and I felt like he's been quite a polarising character this season, in terms of some people thinking that the club potentially could have used the money spent on him to invest in different areas of the squad. Do you agree with that, first of all? And
well,
second
first
of all,
I've
do you think
not
you
heard
go
it.
elsewhere?
So you're polarising something that I've not heard.
Okay.
And I'm pretty close to all the noise. I don't think anybody has said that they didn't think he was a good signing.
Okay, yeah.
I would say that you can't really look at any one player. I think you look at the discipline element, the suspensions, losing players in key moments in those games as well.
Yeah.
One or two injuries that have affected us. So the balance has not been quite what it was in the before. Recently, he's broke a toe. So has he really been at his best? He's been rested. I expect him to come out of the blocks flying in the next one. But I do feel he's been a really important player. He's a leader, a really good character, great guy, and I think that's just as important as being a great player for me. So he brings a lot with him, with his habit, of his behaviour, the way he is around the club, and long may that continue.
So do you think then that given all that, and as you said, it's not just on the pitch he has an impact, it's the character he is too. So is that worth not perhaps investing it in like new wingers if like people feel that Martinelli, etc. haven't
It's a
contributed
key
as
area
much,
of the
or a
pitch.
striker?
If you look at Rodri now not being available for Man City, you could argue that singular player has been catastrophic for them not being available. So when you're putting the pieces in the jigsaw, then I would like to think, copying that. We don't have to copy that. Every team that's going to win anything is going to have a top midfield player that is able to get up and down. And he is that for Arsenal. So, I think it was a key component. Thereafter, it's about looking now. The defence looked very strong. It's like creativity. It's Ødegaard when we don't have him, but I think Nwaneri demonstrated, in the few moments that we're seeing him, that he is definitely going to be someone. Maybe in 6 months' time, if this happens again and Ødegaard's out, I sincerely think now that he looks very ready to me. And he plays in that same pocket of space. So it's having two players in every position is what you need if you're going to be title contenders.
What is it about Nwaneri, do you think, that has made him so special?
Well, his braveness on the ball. He wants to turn and go at people. And he drives into that same pocket of space. He wants to play on the right-hand side of midfield. Whether or not now, when you look at it and you think, okay, is he going to break into the team? Does it have to happen in a different position? Does that mean then Martinelli and people are under pressure? But that's what you want. You want competition for places, but they might have to try and find a place for him. If he keeps doing what he's doing when he comes off the bench, scores his first Premier League goal last weekend, I think, there'd be a place for him eventually.
So over the weekend, Liverpool have extended their lead at the top. What do you think?
8 points.
What do you think Arsenal need to catch them? Do they need to spend in January?
They need to win 7 or 8 games before then.
Yeah.
That's what you have to do. Simple as that. You have to go on one of these really, outstanding runs. So that, the Forest game, for instance, was one where, to shut out the noise, if you're going to, obviously you're looking at it and saying, well, okay, lots of injuries, lots of suspensions, lots of away games, by the way. I mean, Arsenal at the moment are in a sequence of 7 games, only one of them at home.
Really, yeah.
And so you look at it and you think, well, okay, you look at Liverpool and that their fixtures look winnable, but that changes. You will play the same teams. It's just they come around. I mean, even this one now for Liverpool, Man City at the weekend. That's like, it's a beautiful time for Liverpool to play Man City, but might just be an incredible moment for City to strike back.
Yeah.
The fixtures, Arsenal just need to go on a run, go about their business, keep healthy, want everybody available, Some players were rested at the weekend. I think it was great to Havertz to get a rest, Jesus coming back in the middle, and hope, I suppose, that Liverpool start to ship points and start, having the problems of dealing with being, okay, we're winning. They don't seem to be having any problems right now, and they have won a Premier League in recent times. The nucleus of that team, certainly the back four and Salah, is a Premier League winning team.
What do you think that Arne Slot has done differently to Jurgen Klopp to bring this harmony to the Liverpool team they've got at the moment? Because you can argue that Klopp put those foundations in place.
Well, he definitely did put them in place.
He definitely did, yeah. But what is it that Arne Slot has done that sort of brought it all together?
I think it's when you go into a football club, it's kind of it'd be very easy for him to have been the one on trial. It doesn't look that way. It looks like the players are on trial. I'm even looking at Robertson and thinking he's still on trial, but he's still picking him. But he's getting the best out of everybody. Even Salah, with his hasn't yet signed his contract. We're being told today that he hasn't even been offered a contract. But he's playing angry, and he's bringing the best out of Salah. He's proving he can cope with the sort of uncertainty of what could happen in the future. He'd be fine wherever he ends up. Liverpool fans would dearly love to see him stay there. So he's created the right mix, but the foundation is definitely Klopp. And Klopp was rebuilding another team here, and for whatever reason got tired or fatigued or wanted to step away. And sometimes when a great leader like that, who is very demanding and wants things done at 100 miles an hour, the next guy comes in and there's a calmness, and I can sense that. And it doesn't look laboured. For everybody else, for City, for Arsenal, their competitors, it looks a grind. It looks like really difficult. But for Liverpool, they're comfortable. And even yesterday, when Southampton handed it on a plate, they were there to cash in, and that's the sign of champions.
Talking about another title contender, then Manchester City, 5 losses on the bounce. Not many people would have seen that coming. I know we've mentioned no, but you've already mentioned Rodri, but what else is it about City that has made this happen? Because can you really pin it on just Rodri?
No, it can't always be just about one player. But you saw them at the weekend, and it's just where their defenders were like so secure all of last year, never made a mistake, first to the ball. Gvardiol, ball into the channel, he's kind of like he's doubting himself, whereas last year to put his foot through it. Kyle Walker, blessed with pace, but if you don't press the go button to sprint, doesn't matter who you are, you're not going to go quick enough, early enough. And that looked like what's happening. Maybe they're overthinking it too much now, and they're sort of realising that, because when you are winning every week, on the inside, everyone feels, on the outside, everyone's saying, oh, you're amazing, what a great group you've got. We had this with the Invincibles and other seasons where we went unbeaten for a large period. On the inside, I remember speaking to Arsene Wenger, and he was saying, look, if we lose a game, they're so not used to losing. Because when your chest's out, you're proud, we're unbeatable. And then when that goes, it can disappear, it can fall apart. And I think that's where they are right now. So their excellence in the past has affected how they recover, because the building's like a morgue. It's like no one's used to losing. And I learned this when I went to Leicester and I went to Reading. There are players there that have had, slip-ups. It's almost like a major event when you lose a game. It's an occupational hazard everywhere else. But at big clubs, it doesn't happen. So I expect them to jump out of this, and they've got the tools to do that. Pep is an outstanding manager. So it's
funny, isn't it? 'Cause as you said, it's very easy when, it's not easy to get into the winning position, but once you're there, I suppose, when you had the Invincible season and when you were during that successful period, did you ever think, gosh, I don't actually know what it would be like if we lost, and like that fear almost of how you would handle it?
I do remember when we lost the occasional game, I was like, I've been in the game long enough, I was probably the most senior player. It was almost like a surreal situation where people were, they take it like, they were 2 down. And it's like, well, look, this is the reality. It's how we react to defeats. And in a way, it's like, when you win, that's easy. Let's see how you are now as people. I'm pretty certain that the manager's in there saying, right, where are the leaders? Where's the characters? Do we want, because you don't want a record, do you, for losing games? I think as former champions, that we're getting into record territory now, the number of games that they've lost. They were setting records for the right reasons. They've got to get back to that quickly.
And who are those leaders in the City dressing room?
Well, that's for the manager to determine, isn't it? Walker's one of those, keeper. The Haaland. These are all youngsters. You look at the group. There's only De Bruyne and Walker, who are sort of 33, 34. Gundogan maybe slightly older. So they're all kind of, but you want the youngsters to, Foden would never have experienced this, would he, in his life? So, now he's going to have to learn how to deal with it. Like, it's kind of the norm everywhere else, but not at City.
So then, their game versus Liverpool, score prediction.
Man City to win.
Yeah.
Because that's what they do. They bounce back, they show character, and then their manager says, it's the best group I've ever worked with. That's probably what's going to happen. We expected that against Spurs, and it didn't happen. So we watched with great interest.
Score prediction?
I'm going to go with a 2-1 away win.
Okay.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app, and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.